Here's what Hollywood got completely wrong about the Wild West. Those feathered costumes? Pure fiction. The constant gunfights? Barely happened. But the women they called saloon girls? They were running some of the most sophisticated businesses on the American frontier. We're talking about entrepreneurs who built entertainment empires. Madams who negotiated with outlaws and politicians alike. And dance hall girls who earned more in a night than cowboys made in a month. Some accumulated enough wealth to buy entire city blocks. Others disappeared into respectable society, their frontier pasts becoming family secrets. But here's what's really shocking. Most saloon girls weren't selling what you think they were selling. And the ones who were, they were operating according to business models so clever that modern corporations would take notes. Today, we're exposing the real story behind the Wild West's most misunderstood profession. From the economics of dance tickets to the politics of red light districts, you're about to discover why everything you thought you knew about saloon girls is probably wrong. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never watch a Western the same way again. The frontier's gender crisis. Picture this, it's 1875 and you're standing in the middle of a booming frontier town. Look around, what do you see? Men, everywhere. Cowboys fresh off cattle drives. Miners with gold dust in their pockets. Railroad workers between jobs. Soldiers on leave. The gender ratio in some frontier towns was literally 10 men to every woman. This wasn't just a social problem. It was an economic opportunity waiting to be exploited. Saloons quickly evolved into multi-service entertainment complexes. They weren't just bars, they were restaurants, hotels, gambling halls, dance venues, and social clubs all rolled into one. And where there's entertainment, there's money to be made. But here's where it gets interesting. The women who worked in these establishments had a variety of titles that revealed just how complex their roles really were. Dance hall girls earned money partnering lonely cowboys for waltzes. Hostesses served drinks and provided conversation. Entertainers performed on stage or worked the crowd between shows. Then there were the soiled doves, Victorian America's surprisingly poetic term for women in the sex trade. But even within that category, you had everything from desperate women working in squalid cribs to sophisticated madams running upscale parlor houses that rivaled the finest hotels. And here's the kicker. Many saloon girls never sold sex at all. They made their living selling dances, drinks, and conversation to men starving for female company. It was the ultimate service economy, and these women were the entrepreneurs. The business architecture. Let's break down how these businesses actually worked, because the economics were far more sophisticated than Hollywood suggests. Dance halls operated on a ticket system that would make modern event planners jealous. Men purchased dance tickets, usually 25 cents to $1 each, that entitled them to one dance with the lady of their choice. The women earned commissions on every ticket, typically keeping 40–60% depending on their negotiating power. But the real money was in drinks. Ladies' drinks were genius marketing. These were often colored water or heavily watered alcohol that allowed women to stay sober while encouraging clients to buy round after round of the real stuff. A skilled dance hall girl could turn a 25-cent dance into a $5 evening just through strategic beverage ordering. Parlor houses operated on an entirely different model. Think exclusive social clubs with membership fees. Clients paid for conversation, dining, entertainment, and company. These establishments offered genuine luxury, fine wines, elaborate meals, silk furnishings, and cultured conversation. Some madams employed legitimate chefs, musicians, and even librarians. The most successful operations were vertically integrated businesses. Fanny Porter's establishment in San Antonio included dining rooms, gambling tables, entertainment spaces, and private quarters. She employed dozens of people, owned property throughout the city, and reportedly had members of Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch on her client list. But here's what really separated the professionals from the amateurs: customer relationship management. Successful women developed regular clientele who'd seek them out specifically. They remembered names, preferences, personal details. It was relationship-based commerce that modern businesses spend millions trying to replicate. Law, order, and creative legislation. The legal status of saloon girls created some of the most creatively hypocritical legislation in American history. Towns needed the revenue these businesses generated, but they also needed to maintain moral appearances for respectable settlers. Enter the Social Evil Ordinance, possibly the most honest name for a law ever written. Cities like Denver and San Francisco created detailed regulatory frameworks that acknowledged reality while attempting to manage it. Women had to register with authorities, submit to monthly medical examinations, and pay substantial licensing fees. The medical inspection system was remarkably progressive for its time. House physicians, legitimate doctors who found the work more lucrative than frontier family practice, provided regular healthcare and STI screening. Some parlor houses had better medical protocols than frontier hospitals. But here's where it gets politically fascinating. Sheriff departments walked an incredibly fine line. They might protect women from violent customers on Monday and arrest them for public indecency on Tuesday, depending on which way the political winds were blowing. Election seasons brought predictable moral crusades. Reform candidates would promise to clean up the town, leading to highly publicized raids and arrests. After the votes were counted, business would quietly resume with new arrangements and higher fees. Everyone understood the theater involved. Federal authorities faced their own contradictions. Army posts officially prohibited prostitution while practically depending on nearby entertainment districts to maintain troop morale. Railroad companies condemned moral corruption while building stations conveniently close to red light districts. Some sheriffs genuinely protected the women in their jurisdictions, understanding that regulation worked better than prohibition. Others used moral campaigns to extract bribes or settle personal scores. The badge was no guarantee of which approach you'd encounter. The dangerous reality. Not every saloon girl story ended with property ownership and business success. The reality included risks that no amount of house security could entirely eliminate. Violence was an occupational hazard. Customers turned aggressive when drunk or when business negotiations didn't meet expectations. Competing establishments sometimes raided each other. Even upscale parlor houses dealt with robbery attempts. Women developed sophisticated survival strategies. Hidden weapons were common. Derringers concealed in corsets, knives tucked into boot tops. Emergency signals allowed quick communication with security. Mutual protection networks meant women looked out for each other across establishment lines. Disease posed equally serious threats. Before antibiotics, sexually transmitted infections could be career-ending or life-ending. The house medical programs helped, but frontier medicine had obvious limitations. Women often treated ailments with mercury compounds that were sometimes more dangerous than the original conditions. Addiction was another occupational hazard. Laudanum, opium dissolved in alcohol, was readily available and often prescribed for everything from headaches to heartbreak. The stress of the work combined with drug availability created predictable problems. But here's what's remarkable. Many women showed extraordinary resilience. They formed mutual aid societies, pooled resources to help colleagues in crisis, and developed networks that functioned like informal unions. The successful ones saved money systematically, planning exit strategies from day one. The average working life was brutally short. Most women aged out by their late 20s. Without social safety nets, retirement planning was literally a matter of survival. The smart ones diversified early, investing in property or learning business skills that translated to legitimate enterprises. Faces behind the legend. Let's meet some real women whose stories shatter every Hollywood stereotype. Julia Boulette of Virginia City, Nevada wasn't just successful. She was genuinely beloved by her community. She operated an upscale establishment, contributed to local charities, and became a fixture at social events. When she was murdered in 1867, the entire town turned out for her funeral. Businesses closed, and her killer was executed by public hanging. Clearly, Victorian moral standards were more flexible than we often assume. Eleanor Madame Moustache Dumont earned her nickname from distinctive facial hair that would have ended most women's social careers. Instead, she turned it into a brand, She traveled the gambling circuit from California to Nevada, running card games and managing entertainment venues. Her gambling skills reportedly surpassed most professional male gamblers. She understood that success meant owning the room, not just working it. Big nose. Kate Haroni worked various entertainment roles while maintaining her famous relationship with Doc Holliday. She operated her own businesses, accumulated substantial savings, and eventually retired to comfortable respectability. Later in life, she gave interviews to historians, providing first-hand accounts that revealed the gap between mythology and actual experience. Here's what these women shared: business sense, adaptability, and political savvy. They understood that success required managing relationships with clients, law enforcement, community leaders, and competitors simultaneously. They were negotiating complex social situations that would challenge modern diplomats. The diversity factor. The women who worked as saloon girls came from backgrounds as varied as the frontier itself. Economic necessity drove most career decisions, but their origins tell a broader story about American immigration and opportunity. French women operated some of the most elegant parlor houses, bringing European sophistication to frontier towns. Their establishments featured genuine French cuisine, imported wines, and continental social customs. They understood that luxury was about experience, not just decoration. Mexican women worked in border establishments that served both American and Mexican clientele, often speaking multiple languages and navigating complex cultural expectations. Their businesses connected frontier towns to broader international networks. Chinese women faced the harshest conditions, often working under arrangements closer to slavery than employment. The Chinese Exclusion Act and general anti-Asian sentiment limited their legal protections. Their stories represent some of the darkest chapters in frontier labor history. Native American women navigated additional complexities, working in towns that might be actively hostile to their presence while depending on their labor. Some achieved remarkable success despite these obstacles, developing cross-cultural business relationships that benefited entire communities. The racial dynamics varied dramatically by location. Some towns maintained strict segregation with separate districts and corresponding price differentials. Others operated more integrated businesses, particularly in cosmopolitan cities like San Francisco, where diversity was an economic advantage. Myth-busting. What Hollywood got wrong? Everything you think you know about saloon girl costumes is probably fiction. Those elaborate feathered headdresses, ultra-short skirts, and revealing bodices were theatrical inventions created decades later for Wild West shows and early Hollywood films. Real dance hall women wore practical dresses that allowed for movement while maintaining period-appropriate modesty. Bright colors, certainly. Red, blue, and yellow were popular, but more Sunday best than burlesque costume. Fabric was expensive on the frontier. Nobody was wasting it on impractical outfits. The constant drama and shootouts were equally fictional. Most evenings involved routine business transactions, customer management, and entertainment. Women who succeeded were those who could defuse tense situations with humor and diplomacy, not derringers and death threats. Hollywood also simplified the range of services. Real establishments offered entertainment, companionship, dining, gambling, and accommodation. Adult services were one option among many, not necessarily the primary one. Many operated more like private social clubs than brothels. The movie version erased women's agency entirely. Real saloon girls made calculated business decisions, negotiated their own terms, and often moved between establishments or roles as opportunities arose. They weren't passive victims, but active participants in frontier capitalism. Most importantly, the mythology ignored the business sophistication involved. Successful parlor houses maintained elaborate accounting systems, employed legitimate physicians, and operated according to detailed policies covering everything from customer behavior to employee benefits. The money trail. The financial impact of saloon girl businesses on frontier development was enormous and largely unacknowledged in traditional histories. Red light districts generated substantial tax revenue for growing towns. License fees, property taxes, and fines provided steady income for municipal governments. Some frontier towns literally couldn't have afforded basic services without revenue from entertainment districts. The women themselves often became significant property investors. Former madams purchased hotels, restaurants, and retail buildings. Their business experience in customer service, financial management, and personnel administration translated perfectly to legitimate enterprises. Denver's notorious Holiday Street eventually became a respected commercial district. San Francisco's Barbary Coast evolved into the financial district. The entertainment money that initially supported these areas funded broader urban development that lasted long after the original businesses closed. Individual success stories were remarkable. Some women accumulated enough wealth to retire comfortably, buy property in respectable neighborhoods, and send children to elite schools. A few became silent partners in legitimate businesses, using their accumulated capital and business networks to build second careers. The tolerance for moral flexibility that allowed these businesses to flourish also created space for other unconventional enterprises. Towns that accepted entertainment districts often became more welcoming to immigrants, religious minorities, and innovative business arrangements. The end of an era. The frontier conditions that created opportunities for saloon girls were historically brief. Railroad expansion, territorial statehood, and changing social attitudes gradually eliminated the circumstances that made such businesses profitable. Statehood brought conventional moral standards and legal systems that replaced territorial pragmatism. Women's suffrage movements, ironically often organized by former saloon girls who understood political mobilization, campaigned for moral reforms that eliminated their former profession. Urban development changed entertainment economics. Larger populations supported legitimate theaters, restaurants, and hotels that competed directly with saloon businesses. Professional entertainment replaced amateur performers, and corporate hospitality displaced individual entrepreneurs. The last generation often became respectable businesswomen, using their accumulated wealth and skills in conventional enterprises. Some establishments adapted by transforming into legitimate businesses. Dance halls became community centers. Former parlor houses operated as hotels. Their children and grandchildren entered mainstream society, carrying forward the entrepreneurial spirit that had characterized frontier entertainment while leaving the stigmatized past behind. Legacy and modern lessons. These women's stories reveal crucial truths about American frontier development that traditional histories often overlook. They created businesses, accumulated wealth, and built independent lives under circumstances that challenged every social convention of their era. Their success required intelligence, resilience, and business acumen that deserves recognition rather than judgment. They identified market opportunities, developed customer relationships, and built profitable enterprises in an economy that offered women few alternatives. Modern historians continue uncovering documentation that reveals the gap between mythology and reality. Business records, property deeds, and personal letters show women who were far more complex and capable than either critics or defenders typically acknowledged. Their stories also illuminate the relationship between morality and pragmatism that characterized frontier society. Communities publicly condemned vice while privately depending on it for economic development. The hypocrisy was remarkable, but it created spaces for unconventional lives and businesses. Perhaps most importantly, their experiences remind us that historical types, whether saloon girls, cowboys, or gunfighters, were complex individuals facing real challenges with available resources. The frontier wasn't a movie set, but a place where people built actual lives under extraordinary circumstances. The swinging doors have long since stopped swinging. The red light districts have been paved over or transformed into shopping centers. But the influence of these women persists in the cities they helped build, the businesses they established, and the precedent they set for female entrepreneurship in challenging circumstances. Their story deserves telling without Hollywood embellishment, as a chapter in American business history that's finally getting the nuanced examination it has always merited.